Woodcraft, helping you make woodwork.
There's 4. 5. And 6. Okay, this looks like a big mess right now. But what we're doing is, remember this second circle in from the outside, that's our stopping point. When we wipe the router back and forth and create these arcs, we don't go beyond that. And in here, we don't go beyond here. Remember, this is where the knob was. That's the minimum compression, maximum expansion. And so what I do, so I don't get messed up when I'm using this thing, is where I drew circles there, I go around and I draw circles on all those other points. So I know that when I'm down there looking around and you got glasses on, you know where to stop, okay? Any questions on what we've done so far? Anything? It's really pretty easy. When you look at these on the internet, it's kind of confusing, but if you see somebody do it, it's a piece of cake. So at this point, I think now that you know where all these router marks or arcs are going to be made, you notice how I had 4 screws over here? I'm going to put 2 more screws on this side, because at some point, we're going to cut this circle round and these corners are going to drop away, and I need to be able to keep the discs together. So what I do is I look over here and I think, well, I'll pick a point there and I'll pick a point pretty much opposite, and I countersink a hole and just put 2 sheetrock screws in there just to hold the disc together, because once you cut these corners away, this has to stay together. Any questions? Okay, I think we're done with this one. Let's go to this one now. Oh, the finger tightening holes. I forgot to show you that. Now that you know all these arcs right here, you know there's going to be a groove there, there's going to be a groove there, there's going to be one there and there. So what I did, if it's a 6-button chuck, I drill 6 finger tightening holes. If it's an 8, I drill 8. So what I do is just pick a point out here someplace. Let's say it's right there. I mean, it's not, kind of halfway in between each. And then what you do, you take your compass and you make a point there, and you do that again and again. And then what you do, put a little dimple in there, take it to your drill press. I don't know what this is, 3/4 or an inch Forstner bit, whatever. And so now I've got a way to mark them. It just cosmetically looks cleaner and neater. They're equally spaced. Any questions?
It's going to keep the dollars too, right?
Yes, yeah. Okay, so now we're here. I went ahead and I drilled the 6 holes in this case. It would have been 8 in that case for the finger tightening things. And now what we're going to do, it's time for the router. Let me get this cord untangled here. I learned couple little tricks kind of the hard way with these things. This little piece of blue tape, this is just painter's tape. It can be any kind of tape you got. That's the pivot pin. It's a 1/8 inch diameter pin that comes with the router guide. If you lose this, as I have before, just use an 1/8 inch drill bit, because these are 1/8 inch holes in there. So what I'm going to do, you can see here the pivot holes. These are already drilled out to 1/8 of an inch. So I know that I have to pivot here and cut this arc. Pivot here and cut this arc. Follow me? So what I do is I take this almost down to the surface. Now I could measure all this stuff. It's 6 3/16 of an inch and all that, and use the guide. I choose not to do that. I find an arc, get this close, and then find the accompanying hole. Let's see if I can see the thing. once this is established, it's pretty easy. Come on. Having a good source of light is okay. It needs to go out a little bit more. Let's try that hole. Is that? Come on. Sorry, this part is kind of like watching paint dry. Little plastic mallet, you can tap that in. Is that even close? Needs to go just a little further. Come on. Just about. Yeah, it is. Maybe it would be faster if I did take the time to measure it, but there we go. Maybe just one more in. There, I think we got it. Okay. Now this is a real important step. It took me a couple minutes there to find the exact place. What I do is I take a piece of tape and I put it on the plate, and I take a pencil or a little pen and I draw an arrow to where that pin is, because I'm going to be pulling this thing out. That way I can put it right back in. Now, I found something out about these things. I use 1/4-inch hardware and a 1/4-inch bit, so you should think that everything fits, and it does. Okay, when you go to put these together and you put the little drawbars in there, these things, I found that a 1/4-inch hardware and a 1/4-inch slot didn't move smoothly. It didn't move at all. It bound. So I spent a couple hours with sandpaper and fret tail files and thinking, this is going to be a pain in the neck. If I get one done, that's as far as I'm going. This, excuse me. This thing is set up to go in 1/16 increments, okay? So if I cut the groove all the way through here and I want to make it a little bit wider, I just go one to the left or one to the right of where I was. So how much will I take out if this is set up for 1/16 inch? Be a 1/32. Remember, I'm cutting here and cutting opposite all the way around. So what I did is this little piece of tape, I drew a little line to my pin and I marked that number 1. Right next to it, draw another little line. That's position 2. What this does is it makes the groove 1/32 of an inch larger, and voila, it just worked perfectly out of the...
You can't buy a broader bit than
No. So basically I just moved it in a notch. So what I do when I go now, this is the point where we'd be making all kinds of noise and everything. I've got this in here. I go through and I go from my inner to my outer. And it takes about 4 or 5 passes to get all the way through this 1.5 inch thickness here. Once that's done, pull the pin out, move it one to the left, one to the right, either one, and then proceed and just go through it again. So basically I've got 1.5 inch deep. It's all the way through, and it's a 1/32 of an inch bigger. So this is what we'd be doing here. We'd be going all the way around this. This process takes about 20 minutes. And this is, the old adage, measure twice and cut once. Measure 4 times and cut once. And put the tape on the jig. And that's whatever you use this jig for, cutting speaker holes or whatever, put a piece of tape on that pin so you can come back to it, okay? Again, I have cut number 1, which is all the way through, 1/4 of an inch, and cut number 2. Takes a 30-second off. Any questions? Okay, let's pretend I've gone all the way around this. For each of the 6 positions, I did 2 cuts, and all the grooves are through. It should look something like that. In fact, it should look exactly like that. Here, we hook it up there, and you can look through there, and you can see everything is lined up. And this face is what we just did over here. Take this out. I'm going to peel this up. This thing is a sawdust magnet, which means it always will fall in the sawdust, and you'll never be able to. Probably one of the best things I bought for my shop is one of those magnets on a pole, like my little minesweeper. Okay, so we're done with that. Next thing we do is we go to the center with the router again, and we go out and we cut the circle, the outside. You want to cut. Excuse me. Pardon me. You want to cut on the outside of the circle. So if you go all the way around there, these corner pieces should just drop away onto the floor, and you will have this. This is what you'll have left. And once that's done, then you're done with the router. Then you take a 1/4 inch drill bit, put it in a chuck on the tail stock, and put a 1/4 inch bit on there, and you want to run it all the way through. This is the center hole here. It's the last thing you do. And this is for what I call the axle. And it's a 1/4 inch bolt. And you can see all the way through there, okay? So we're done with this piece. Any questions at all about what we've done to get to this point? On the arc, just from the pivot points, again, don't deviate from the compass heading. Just kind of take care of what you're doing. Okay, now this can be mounted on. This has been on the lathe, remember, because we drilled a hole here. This is going around. You push the 1/4 inch bit through it. At this point, since both these are still screwed together, remember these 2 screws we put in? You can sand this. I would say take it up to 400 and sand this piece right here. Once you're done with that, take the screws out. Set this aside. Now this piece is exposed, and you can sand this. Sand it up to, again, about 400. You know that these plates are going to be against one another. At this point, you can put some wax on here if you want to make sure it's. I found that if you just sand it nice and smooth, it's going to work just fine. So, see how these arcs are going in the same direction? Yes, sir.
You would never think about, rather than waxing it so they come apart, would you ever think about just gluing them together?